Oh my goodness. Well, good evening there, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, it's Jason Green here at Agroforestry, and tonight is Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. So it's time for yet another live stream. Of course, tonight we're going to be discussing the planting of trees alongside highways, why some projects works, why some projects don't, and of course, the things that you can do to make sure that your tree planting project works, whether it's beside the highway or whether you're just going out there in some wilderness and getting started with planting a forest. So I want to jump in real quick here, say hello to everybody. And when you're coming in, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff so you don't miss good stuff that's coming out later on this week. I got an announcement. When is it? Not tomorrow. This coming Sunday, we're releasing a video where I will show you how you can increase your topsoil depth by up to 75% for free overnight. It's easy, and we'll show you that coming up this Sunday. All right, so who's in here tonight? We've got Sasspress Red giving us a link there for a biscuit root. Yeah, that's sort of the thing I like. Yellow, and it was yellow, white, and purple flowers that it comes with. So you have some options for colors, and it still produces an edible storage root. So there's more pretty flowers people can look at and go, oh, look at all the pretty flowers, and at the same time, it's food. We might have Fishes and Loaves Life coming up in the next week or two. Carol from Fishes and Loaves Life coming up. We're going to be talking about things that can be done in backyards and even in front yards where you have homeowners associations and you want to be able to sneak some food security in under the noses of the watchful eye of the homeowners associations. We'll have that coming up. Of course, this Sunday is the, as aforementioned, video on increasing topsoil by 75%. All right, here we go. Oklahoma Chicken Cam in the house. He's got a live streaming camera with chickens. You got it. And the street looks like just right down the road from us. I swear, it all looks the same around here. Residential neighborhoods. Let's see, I have Passamaquoddy. Hopefully I said that right. Mary is still working. Yep. John, anytime you can bring us some income is always a good thing. I was talking with Mary earlier on the phone, and I asked her what time it was. She said it's 7 o'clock. I said, "Oh shoot, I gotta get ready because I haven't set up the green screen, haven't set up the lights or anything. And I need to make sure that everything's in place before we get started." But I was busy at that time running around trying to get some last minute mulberry cutting started. I don't know if they're going to take. I've got a few that we've got started that have rooted, so we're going to have some mulberry trees for you next year, and then we're trying to get some additional ones started if we can. But we're right at that edge right now where it can be challenging, and I have to switch to a different method. Vicki is in the house saying, the Experimental Farmer Network has a lot of real keen stuff. Yeah, I've seen a lot of the stuff that they have. Some things that you just can't find anywhere else. Carolyn Smith's Food, Forest, and Homestead in the house. Hi, y'all. Hi. Faith K is in the house. Kimber's in the house. Quite literally, she's in the other room.
Hi.
And the Chakota Carver, what a great name that is. I think I want to go check your channel out just for the name. It sounds nice. Hi, how is everybody? Yes, that's it. Okay, so that's everybody in the house. Let's jump on into it. I've got an article here. It's from Sky News. And since I don't want to get into any hassles over possible copyright issues or anything like that, I'm just going to share the link with you guys here so you can have a look at it yourselves. Hopefully it goes through and it's not too long. There we go. So we'll have a look at that link, especially if you can look at the picture of where they planted the trees along the side of this highway, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Now, everybody that saw the thumbnail coming in, that highway in the thumbnail is not an Australian highway. It's a North American highway. But we have some very similar things going on with the North American highway and the Australian highway in that hillside that you're looking at in that picture is all rock and clay and not really great conditions for trees to grow on. But you notice it's covered with trees. But you look at the picture of the highway, whenever you can see it, you see how it's got that nice slope coming down, with the grass on it. The way highways are, they build them up and has that grass slope coming down, and they planted trees all along that slope. Obviously, some of us who are watching, or some of you who are watching, can tell already what the problem with this is. It's a highway embankment. They build up the highway by of course, grading the land. And in this case, whenever they were making this particular highway, they had to take out a few mature trees to do it. Hi, Kitty. Yes, I know you want attention. That's nice. Okay, they had to take out a few mature trees to get this done, and they promised that they would replant more trees, additional trees, 850,000 trees to replace the mature trees that they took out, so they could get the approval for the funds to make this highway expansion. National Highways in Australia did. So they built the highway the way you would ordinarily build a highway. You go ahead and start by grading the land that you're going to build your road base on. And then you begin building your road base up by packing down the clay and the rock and making sure that's hard, so that whenever the weight of the traffic running across that road up above, tons and tons of freight moving across that highway go across that roadbed, it doesn't distort the surface of the highway and create potholes and damage tires and cause wrecks and other things like that. So building that roadway is a very serious engineering project, and it creates a certain type of soil structure in that roadway, in that roadbed. Over the top of that, you got a thin layer of sod that just sort of barely hangs on there, and hopefully it's tough enough they can handle drought, and that won't just dry up and blow away, and then you have erosion problems. So anyway, here we have these trees on the side of this embankment, all clay and rock. And they go out and they buy the trees from some nursery company. Well, 850,000 trees is a lot of trees. And you start thinking about where in the world you would get 850,000 trees on short notice. We're thinking maybe landscaping companies. And the kind of trees that you want whenever you're landscaping, maybe trees like the one behind me, which is it's selected for the very, very pretty blossoms, which incidentally are on our trees outside right now, and they are gorgeous. The bees are going nuts, and the flowers are at that point where you can just pick them off of the tree, take the little stems off, because those are a little bit bitter, pop them in your mouth, and they're sweet. They're sweet and tasty. A nice little spring treat. Just make sure you don't get stung by a bee while you're picking them off the trees, because they want that nectar too. But this redbud tree behind me is a tree that actually, for North America anyway, would be a fairly good choice to put beside the side of the road, because it can handle the stress. It can handle wind. It can handle drought. It can handle a little bit of flooding too. And it's really, really good at finding any and all places where it can get its root structure in and get what it needs to survive. It's an excellent survivor. It is what you call a pioneer species. Now, this is one of the rare occasions where a landscaping tree would actually be what you wanted on the side of the road. Usually you don't want landscaping trees, because landscaping trees, once again, usually selected for their beauty or other utility. So start out with proper pioneer species for the environment that you're going to be in. Make sure there's something that can handle that particular soil that you're planting into. We have an organization here in Tulsa. We live next to Tulsa, Oklahoma, that goes around to our highways, which are built the same way. Rock and clay built up, packed hard so that we can run tons of freight over it so it won't deform the roadway, but the trees live. And of course, a big portion of this is selecting species that can survive that particular environment. Big portion. If I was setting it up, I would do things a little bit differently, but I'll talk about that here in a moment. Real quick here, John was saying they need to start with shrubs and sunflowers to break it up. Here's the problem. If you break up the roadway too much, then you're going to have problems with the surface of the road becoming deformed. So you can't break it up too much. Maybe we want things that can grow out and hold that soil embankment in place. So we're looking for things that may be a little bit more shallow rooted, but also things that can handle drought better. So that's a couple of different things to think about whenever putting these together. Clay and rock is everywhere. Everywhere is clay and rock. Anywhere you've got hills, it starts out clay and rock, or starts out rock. Rock will weather down to clay, and so you'll have clay and rock, and then downslope, more clay and more rock. And until you've got organic matter, you don't have much to grow in. If Billy from the Wickershire Project is not too exhausted to get to the keyboard and chime in and say hi here in a minute, I saw what he was doing. I think it was yesterday and today. And he said he got blisters all over his hands. I'll bet he's exhausted. He dug, and you'll have to go check him out at the Wickershire Project. Let me see here. Let me go grab a link, unless somebody else already has one. And you can see what Billy's been doing. Let me see here. Where are you at, Billy? I should have grabbed this before. All right, Billy, where'd you go? Wait. Oh, that's why I can't find it. Yeah. I had a second channel open. All right, let me see here. All right. Wait, oh no. There it is. The Wicker Chart Project off grid. That's why I couldn't find it. Please change the title. It still shows up with the same handle though. So here we go. It goes through. All right, there we go. So Billy has been out there, and you'll be able to see him with a pickaxe, working with lots and lots of rock and clay, and just very, very, very little topsoil. So he's doing some things. You'll be able to follow and see what he does to improve his soil. If you have it that bad, there's things that can be done. All right. Oh, look, Ken's in the house. Alrighty. Vicky was asking, redbud seed pods or some parts thereof are edible. Know anything about this? Yes, they're edible. The best time is just after the flower falls off, whenever the seed pod is still tender. They're tiny. They're like as wide across as my thumbnail, right? Just that's it, that big. But you pick them off then. You can eat them fresh, throw them in your salad, or saute them, and they're like little tiny snow peas at that point. But whenever they start growing out and they get larger, they'll become tough and they'll become a little bit bitter. Presumably later on, you can take the seeds, and we tried steam cooking them like lentils, and those turned out okay, but it's a lot of work to get tiny little seeds out. So eat the flowers, eat the seed pods when they're still tender and green, and then if you really need to, you can pick the mature seeds and pressure cook them, or boil them for an extended period of time and eat the seeds that way. And they're all edible. And they did taste a little bit like lentils. The tree is a member of the Fabaceae family. It's a legume, just a little lentil on a tree. Yep, they are pretty. All right, let me see here. Yeah, the pods there's not much in them. They're tiny little things. All right, let me see here. Oh, Steve was saying he's the flowers too. Yep, they're pretty good trees. I like them, and they're really common right here. I mean, in Oklahoma, this is a state tree. All right, so things that you would do, and what I suggested. Let me go ahead and start reading this article to you for the people that don't have the ability to go and click. I'll just read this out to you. 500,000 Hi, I present material professionally, and I can't talk right. 500,000 trees have died next to 21-mile stretch of road, National Highways admits. This is from Sky News Australia. I provided the link in the chat previously. National Highways planted 850,000 saplings as part of a rather expensive upgrade of the A14 between Cambridge and Huntingdon. It was opened in 2020, but an interview review seen by Sky News reveals 3/4 of them have died since. 75% of 850,000 trees. That is a lot of trees. And of course, you can scroll down there. There is a link to a video that you can watch on YouTube as well. And you can just see this stretch of tiny little dead twigs. And it's very, very sad. The government agency responsible for our main roads, this is in Australia, mind you, National Highways, has admitted that over 500,000 trees have died. They estimated the cost of replanting at 2.9 million pounds. A number of mature trees are destroyed during construction, as I mentioned before. Planting new ones was part of the development consent order. They say poor soil and extreme heat was the main cause of attrition. However, most of the die-offs were before the heat arrived, and the heat didn't help. So there was a lot of things that should have been done here. And if you can see that picture at this point in the article, you can see just that very, very sad field full of grass and mostly tubes that would protect the sapling from getting hit by a weed eater, but there's no living trees there. Now, apparently, replanting is already expected to begin in October with the first batch of 162,000 trees already on order from a local nursery. So I sell trees, and I know that they're not cheap. It's apparently it's going to cost another 2.9 million pounds of taxpayer money to replace this. And I said, guys, you got to stop. Don't let the government do this. You can do what we do here, and I'm sharing this concept. It's called Up With Trees. It's an organization here in Tulsa. It's a completely volunteer organization, and what they do, and they've been doing it for decades, is businesses and families will donate the funds to purchase the trees and also the plaque that goes next to the trees that are going to be planted along a section of highway, effectively adopting this section of highway. Volunteers that work for the organization will come around, plant the trees, and come back and provide the aftercare that they're going to need for the first 3 years of their life, and even afterwards sometimes, to get them well established in that space. Once again, well-selected trees, pioneer species that can survive being planted in clay on the side of a highway. Now, the really cool part about this is if you're a business and you would like to have brand recognition, you can put this sign up next to your section of trees on the side of the highway. It says Up With Trees, and I have your business name on it. This means that effectively the business has invested, or the family, whoever it is that's put up this money, has now invested, and their name is attached to this section of greenery over here. If it turns out poorly, it's going to reflect poorly upon them. So they're also invested in making sure that these trees remain healthy and are taken care of. This is something that government doesn't do. Unfortunately, they've got this idea in their head, and a lot of people have this idea in there. I'm going to go off on a tangent for a moment. A lot of people have this idea in their head that tree is a magical solution. If I can only plant tree is going to be good. We have campaigns. Let's plant 1 million trees. Let's plant 2 million trees. Let's plant however many it is. And they're just going out there and they're putting trees in the ground. They're planting trees, but they're not planting forests. And a tree is a great thing. A tree was a wonderful thing. But the thing that we need for transforming atmospheric CO2 into breathable oxygen and sugars, stored energy, are complete forests. If you're just going to plant trees on top of grass, you may as well just have a monoculture of corn. You could grow corn beside the road, maybe, if you're just going to have that one thing. So we need full forests. Something like that thumbnail picture that I had up there. A North American highway with a forest growing on rock and clay beside it. Well, how is it that the rock and clay beside the highway with the North American forest is able to flourish, and the one that you plant on the side of the roadway by the highway that you construct and you build up, how come that one doesn't work? And the reason is those trees on the naturally occurring side are naturally occurring. They're supposed to be here. This is the environment that they want to grow in. Meanwhile, the constructed roadbed is a dead, sterile environment. It doesn't have any life in it to begin with. And just plugging a tree into it that needs all of that support from a forest in order to thrive is just going to kill the tree. And so they did it. They spent the money. They put the trees in. The trees died. They're getting ready to put more trees in. And they haven't changed their underlying philosophy behind what they're doing. Now, I recommended to them that one of the first things they really should do is stop everything that they're doing. Begin by establishing pioneer species nurseries, preferably with citizen groups doing it, not the government doing it, and allow the citizen groups to take charge and begin doing the planting on the highways, because the citizen groups are going to be invested in the outcome, and the government is just interested in spending your money. Pardon me a moment. Now, the reason we have to have pioneer species nurseries that citizen groups start up to plant these is because you're not going to be able to get enough of these pioneer species from just a regular run-of-the-mill nursery. You're going to have to grow them. It's going to take some time. You may have to put up with grass on the side of the road for a little while until you've got the things necessary to build that ecosystem back up, because the ecosystem is going to have to be built from the ground up, because there's nothing there but grass. There's grass and rock and clay and no microbial activity. Nothing to hold moisture in. This is a bad situation. So what I would recommend doing is begin with the nursery for pioneers. Make sure that you have good, shallow-rooted but drought-resistant shrubs and bushes, among other things. And what we're going to do with those shrubs and bushes is we're going to come down slope and begin planting them just like you would if you were digging ditches on contour, running from the ridges to from the key points to the ridges using keyline design. Except you can't plow, right, the side of a road embankment. So you put the shrubs along there. The purpose of the shrubs is to stop the water runoff, trap organic matter, and allow that organic matter to build up, creating the basis that you're going to need to establish an ecosystem. Then you follow up with other perennial plants, biomass producers, nitrogen fixers. You're going to need some kind of accumulators to provide minerals to those plants. That does mean they are going to get into the roadbed somewhat, so make sure they're not species that send deep roots. Once again, shallow-rooted things that'll hold the soil in place. And as they build up organic matter, the organic matter will hold moisture, and more things will be capable of growing there. Eventually, you can get away with planting some of those more ornamental trees along the side of the road, but not initially. Not initially. You're going to have to start with the pioneers, and you're going to have to build that ecosystem up from the ground up. Some other things to consider. You're going to need to have some way of taking care of those trees and stopping the pests from destroying them. Now, ordinarily in the forest, you're going to have wild animals, birds in particular, that are going to come along and do that. So how are you going to get the birds to come to the highway? This could be a little bit of a dangerous situation. Are we going to have bird strikes on cars? Have we thought about this? Well, maybe we need to pick out species that don't need to be patrolled by those wild birds as much. Maybe that's the way to do it. Either way, maybe we'll put a fence up there so the animals don't run across the roadway. Then again, you saw the picture in the thumbnail. That's wide open wilderness. There could be birds and animals running across the road at any given time. Oh, Susie wanted to be in the picture. Hi. She wanted some attention. Hi, kitty. Hi, kitty. So you have to put in the materials that are necessary to feed the animals that are going to be part of this ecosystem to make sure that the trees are tended and taken care of. Our pecan trees would be devoured by webworms in the spring and in the fall both if it wasn't for the wild birds that we attracted to come here and deal with them. So Steve is saying native wildflowers is a cover crop. Yeah, there you go. Native wildflowers is a cover crop in the shrub line. For here, I'd be throwing in things like maybe 2 or 3 different varieties of milkweed. They'll be nice, bright, colorful, bring the pollinators in. Oh, yeah. And we're going to put in maybe some fruit trees eventually once we've got organic matter built up, right? You don't want those first. We wait until 10, 15 years have passed. Our biomass producers are shedding. The leaves go down, hit the shrub line. They can't go any further, right? Now we've got this organic matter built up here, trapping moisture. It decomposes. It decomposes and creates more and more soil over the surface of that hard clay and rock. Because what we don't want to break up the hard clay and rock. That's what's making that roadbed nice and smooth for an extended period of time. But we want to build the organic matter up so that we can have a little bit more biodiversity along the side of that road. And over time, we build the organic matter up until it is a real living ecosystem in a forest along the side of the road. But you can't just jump in and start plugging the trees in and expect that's going to fix the problem. Anyway, very good, Steve. Wildflowers are awesome. Yeah, and especially ones that grow on poor soil. And there are a lot of them. Now, the person I recommended to help them out with this, because I can give you the general idea of what you need to do to fix this problem, but I don't know what specific species you need because I'm not in Australia. I don't specialize in pioneer species in Australia, but I do know a guy in Australia, New South Wales, that actually does and is really good at this sort of thing. And he probably will want to make swales, but you can use the shrubs instead of swales and not break up your roadbed. And that guy's name is Jeff Lawton. Jeff Lawton is a student of Bill Mollison's, of course, and I don't hold that against him. And I mentioned this, and Sassafras Red said, I got to know, what in the world is your problem with Bill Mollison? We're coming up on 25 minutes. I'm going to take a momentary break to pet the kitty, drink some generic sports drink that you can't see because it's the same color as the green screen. And then we'll commence the killing of Bill Mollison on the side of an Australian highway. Hi, Moon Sprouts. Okay, so I'm sure many of you already know, but back in, I think it was 1978, a couple of folks from Australia, I think it was Hobart University. I've been to Hobart, haven't been to the university. Hobart's a cool town, by the way. Nice slope all the way up from the port, straight up to the top of this hill. Cute little bookshop up there where I found some books that I wasn't even able to find in the States because they had been out of print. But I loaded up my pack, and when I got back to the ship, I had plenty of reading. Anyway, when was that? It was 91. We were in Hobart, Tasmania. Anyway, at the University of Hobart in Tasmania, they had two gentlemen get together that started working on a project that became what we call the modern permaculture movement, and that was Bill Mollison and David Holgram. And together they co-authored a book that I can't talk about called the Permaculture Designer's Handbook. At least my drink blends well. Yes, it does. All right. Always PG-13. I'm kidding. So they wrote this particular book and began teaching courses on permaculture design. Bill Mollison coined the phrase permaculture from permanence in cultura, Latin for permanent agriculture, or permanent, well, not agriculture, permanent culture. Culture is thing that supports human occupations, a permanent human occupation. Of course, there's a problem with all of this. And you can find out more about Bill by watching some of his later in life interviews whenever he was in his near his final years in Tasmania. I believe he died in 2016. So he is already, in fact, dead. We're not really killing Bill Mollison. What we're doing is killing the mythical persona. Bill and I start from two entirely different positions. Bill disliked humans. He saw humans as a problem. And he never got over that misanthropy that he had. Bill is also an atheist, which is a really weird position for a person that works with nature, very closely with nature, to have. I'm not quite sure how one can work with ecosystems so closely and develop a deep understanding of them and still be an atheist. It's strange, very strange. In any case, we could not be farther apart because, of course, I think humans are wonderful, maybe misguided, and have been led to do things that are destructive, which is not their fault entirely. Simply, they did not have the connection to their heritage in the world as natural beings, and since we've been divorced from that natural heritage, we've become more destructive. But the nature of humans is not destructive at all. The nature of humans is the ability to optimize ecosystems and make them flourish better than they ever would without a human presence. And so that's what humans are for. This is why we're here. Humans are a good thing. We just need to figure out how to get humans to do the thing that they're supposed to be doing and not running around doing weird stuff. In any case, Bill had this idea that the human's bad and something needs to be done about the humans, which whenever you get to his third ethic, really creates some problems, which, from what I understand, because I have not read it, I still have not read the book. Apparently, it means design to your limitations and don't go beyond those limitations, because then you will create an imbalance, and that leads to further problems later on down the road. However, because of the attitude that was pushed forward whenever permaculture was very first being taught, there are a lot of elitist snobs that have a tendency to think of humans as being a disease and would like to see humans reduced in numbers and carry this idea forward. So there's that thing that got in to the permaculture movement that really needs to be addressed and eliminated. Unfortunately, that thing got in because of Bill Mollison and the way he approached everything. He started out with a teaching method that required that students, of course, pay the money, which makes sense. Providing information as a service, they should pay money, and afterwards would receive a teaching or a certificate so they could also teach permaculture design. Okay, this sounds fine, except of course now we have this set of people with a particular set of training from a particular lineage of training that are, how can I put this, sold into the cult of Bill Mollison, and so attached to the idea that if you do not have the formal certificate from the formal sources, then, like Bill said, you're not doing permaculture. Your grandparents were not doing permaculture. Permaculture did not exist until I came up with the term for permaculture. I guess he's technically correct because he did come up with the term. However, the ethics, the principles, the methods, and everything else in that book, as far as I can tell, has existed before, just not in that book. And the reason I can tell this is because I've never read the book. And yet, when I talk about design principles and ethics and everything else associated with permaculture, people who have read the book go, yeah, that's permaculture. Well, how in the world is it that if my teacher was not a certified permaculture instructor, but my teacher was nature and my grandparents, that I can have the same information? It's because it did not come into existence with Bill Mollison. It already existed. The only thing Bill did, and to his credit, he did it, was write a book that makes an excellent tool for people to learn how to create a good place for people to live in harmony with nature around them. And that's a good thing. The bad thing is, of course, when we turn this into a cult of personality, we become dogmatic and we stop realizing that there are more advances to be made, and there's a greater abundance of knowledge and potential for humanity if we allow permaculture to go ahead. And remember that Bill Mollison and David Holmgren are just one part of the picture and not the whole enchilada. There we go. Not sure why the eugenicists don't set the example. But you don't think that there should be humans on the planet? Oh, go ahead. Take yourself out of the gene pool. Go first. Show us how it's done. But yeah, it's okay for us to talk about reducing the surplus population as long as it's not us. It's those other people. It's the undesirables, right? Oh. And that's the thing, though, right? Most of what we do over here at Green Country Agroforestry is try to develop with agroforestry, with horticulture, food systems that are resilient, that I can walk away from. If I needed to walk away from my garden, once I have this thing established, it should ideally sustain itself for years, decades even, perhaps. It may need some sprucing up, a lot of pruning, and a little TLC to get it back into peak performance, but all the systems should still be in place. Just like what we would like to build along the side of the highways. Once these are established, they can be maintained. They can maintain themselves. Nature will maintain them. I'd also like to add surface water next to the highway for the animals. I'm not sure how we would pull this one off. We might have to develop like a wind trap or an evaporation trap or something to feed it, to make it continue to hold water. But there are some ways that we can make sure that the creatures that are necessary to the maintenance of that forest system can survive.
Just dig out a playa and then figure out a way to supply water.
Jason.
Yeah, I heard. Good night. All right. So Desert Eden Blues completely agree, and then proceed to say that coined the term and attempted to trademark and copy it. Yeah, exactly. It's like, wait a second. Because he's saying your grandparents were not doing permaculture. Okay. My grandmother definitely did not have a permaculture certificate because she was putting her garden together long before Bill Mollison had gotten out of his diapers. But well, maybe not that long. Unless he was a bedwetter. Anyway. She put together this beautiful garden beside the old farmhouse, right next to the barn where they back the trucks out up to load them up with produce and ship them out to places like Walmart back whenever Sam Walton owned the joint and bought produce from our family. The garden that she planted was not a vegetable garden. It was different. It had a magnolia tree for the centerpiece, so part of it was purely ornamental. But it's a nice, pretty tree, fragrant blooms, provides some shade, especially from that afternoon sun. And it was positioned so that it was on a hillside facing the east, a gently sloping hill, consisting of 3 deep ponds, each one set to overflow, spread out a little bit of its moisture through moss pads in between, and distribute out to plants nearby, and then into the next one. So we had water going and moss growing, and these ponds were filled with fish and aquatic plants. Close that. She finished that up sometime, I don't know, during the 1970s or so. And it just required occasional weeding, tending, that sort of thing. It was a nice, pretty place. Lots of, I think, daffodils and hyacinths and other ornamentals, but there were the cannas, and there were the daylilies and other edible plants in there as well. So between all of the things that were there, our pollinators were supported. Our small insect life was supported, and of course the macro predators, or not the macro predators, the larger predators, lizards and snakes and skinks and slow worms, had food in this environment because the leaves would come down, they mulch and everything. They're trapped by the plantings on the outside, so everything was going in and reinforcing this big oval shaped area. Now this is the important thing. In 1971, when I was born, and all the way up until about 1975, that farmhouse was not occupied. Well, at least not by our family. There's a pastor that lived there. They never took care of any of the property on the grounds. Occasionally, they mowed the yard, but the fields went completely fallow. The weeds grew up to be about 14 foot high. It really did look like tall grass prairie after a few years of it being like that. So I know that there was nobody at all for around 7 or 8 years tending this little garden area that my grandmother had built. But whenever we moved back after the pastor had moved on or had purchased their own house, the family moved back in. My mother got remarried, and my brothers and I and the new husband and grandmother too all moved in to the old farmhouse, and I got to go and see what this garden that she had planted looked like after multiple years of being completely ignored. Nobody had been feeding the fish. Nobody had been adding water. It only got water when it rained. There was no fertilizer. Obviously no herbicides, no fungicides, nothing like that. Completely and totally abandoned. And yet the fish were all still alive. The plants were thriving, and everything was still functioning exactly the way she had left it. As far as I'm concerned, that is my grandmother's permaculture certificate. The fact that she was able to create that ecosystem and had the vision to put it all together in a way that made it all take care of itself and produce a surplus that could be harvested by anybody that had the knowledge of what was useful in that garden, including of all the medicinal herbs that were in that garden. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, my grandmother was doing permaculture, Bill. And as a matter of fact, a lot of the things that wind up being talked about are very, very, very close to what regenerative farmers were doing and talking about as far as principles and ethics going back to as early as the 1940s, late 30s and early 40s. And I would know because I've read my grandfather's Bible, not just because it was a good Bible, King James Version, large print, big version, but he wrote his notes in the margins. That's why I say, even though I did not get to physically sit at my grandfather's feet and learn from him like I did for my grandmother, I was able to read his notes and find out what was going on in those notes. So all of those things, plus my own observations of nature, have led me to the same conclusions, which I suppose if you came from a culture where the elders sat the children down when they're very young and teach them these very, very basic things, then you wouldn't need to have someone come along and write a book called the Permaculture Designer's Handbook, because this would be ingrained into our culture already. Okay. Always talking about, yeah. So what we're doing here is trying to create these systems that are regenerative, that support themselves, produce a surplus, and are capable of feeding large numbers of people. It turns out that using horticulture, one can feed a lot more people than one can using mechanical agriculture. The big difference for horticulture is typically your people that are going to be doing the consumption of the food need to be fairly close to it in order for this to work properly. So instead of concentrating people into cities and having big factory farms running one crop at a time, gathering the stuff together, shipping into the cities to feed the people, which is a very, very inefficient way to produce food, wasteful, consumes a lot of fuel, and can only support a small number of people who have to live in their own filth, stacked on top of each other, and in very stressful conditions. This is not natural for humans. We take the humans out of the cities. We move them to the forests. We create the forest. We plant the forest. We grow the forest. We need the forests desperately. And the people will now have a source of food that is right there at hand. They keep on talking about 15-minute cities, 15-minute communities. The idea of being close at hand to what you need, everything you need, is wonderful. It's beautiful. I love it. But the dependency upon a system that is already falling apart in order to accomplish this is just sheer lunacy. And yes, if they continue to try to use factory farm agriculture to feed the masses of the earth, then yeah, we're going to hit a population crunch that's going to be terrible, because we've reached the end of what commercial agriculture can do. It's coming very, very fast. Within the next 30 to 40 years, it'll be done. And I don't see any way to pull out of it other than to return back to what does work, which is generational thinking and horticulture. And the way we get this done is not by decreasing the world's population. It's by increasing it with people that want to take care of the planet and want to take care of other people and want to be good stewards of the earth. And of course, you get this, oddly enough, out of a Bible if you start reading it and get to the first part and realize what mankind's purpose was in that particular book. You can get there other ways. It doesn't matter to me how you got there, as long as you're willing to do that work. I'm not the person that's going to be sitting in judgment over you either way. Let's see here. Let me catch up with comments to see what's going on before I move on. Anyway, John is asking a very important question here. What would we do about road runoff and oil and toxins? And that's an excellent question, John. And I'm thinking that one way we might handle that is have two sets of hedgerows. We're going to have one upslope and one downslope. The one upslope will be able to capture some of the leaves and woody debris from the trees that we're going to be planting. Pardon me. Some, but not all. Some of them. So there's going to be some trapped upslope. And then the downslope areas where we're going to be building our main soil for the later trees that come in succession. But upslope on this top on the top ridge, we want to establish inoculation with things like oyster mushroom. Because oyster mushroom has been capable of adapting to doing things like consuming oil. And you don't want to eat these oyster mushrooms after they've done this. Probably there's going to be nasty stuff in them. But they're able to take up that oil, break the chemical bonds of it, and create new compounds as they grow. So we could use mycoremediation to capture petrochemical runoff from the roadway. much like happens ordinarily in the North American highway that we saw. Allow nature to do it. If nature has the raw material, if it's got the biomass to work on, those mushrooms will break down that oil. Hugo's saying lots of heavy rain where they're at. Just hope you get enough. Just enough. Oh. Tornadoes missed you. Good job. Good job dodging those tornadoes. Here comes one. All right. Yeah, today I thought we were going to get some rain, but it was just overcast. We didn't get any. We got the happy gardener. Oh, here we go. And Fishes and Lowe's Life says still putting her son down for bed. That's okay, Carol. So did she show up eventually? Let's see. Oh wow. You got a fireworks show. All right, let me see. Yeah, there we go. So wise we grow, we think our fathers and mothers fools. Yeah. It's funny though, because you look at the older generation, you see all the mistakes they made. That's how they acquired their wisdom. So if we were going to be wise, we would look at their elders and listen to them because they made the mistakes already. We could listen to them and figure out how to not make them ourselves. But we have been slowly devolving into a generation of people that have lost our ties to our history. We lost our ties to family. We've stopped respecting our elders. And yeah, to a certain extent, it is our elders' fault. We're talking, of course, about the generation preceding mine. I'm a Generation Xer, and of course, my parents were baby boomers, and such a narcissistic generation. No offense to those who are baby boomers watching here, there are, of course, the exceptions. If you're watching this, you're probably interested in generational thinking. You're most likely not a narcissist, so we're not talking about you. But by and large, wow. The 1980s, we called it the me generation. And people were interested in themselves and nothing but. They had children. The children got ignored, neglected, shoved off over the side, given the TV or the device to entertain them. And the children missed hearing the lessons from their elders. And this has been going on for a long time. And so the repair that we're going to have to do to this, I don't know how we repair it, but we have to immediately start reversing the trend and begin instilling respect for elders, family, and generational thinking into the way we do things. Because governments can't be around to provide you with food and housing and warmth whenever you're old. Those programs fail. They weren't that good to begin with. The investments in fiat currencies can be stripped of their value overnight. And so now, when you reach the age where things don't work as well as they used to, and you can't do hard work anymore, it's a little late to go out and try to struggle to earn a living. And the other support systems don't work. But the one that does is family and community. It's the one that has always worked. It's the one that's been there for us from the dawn of time. And it's the one that we can rely on in the future. Ron said, the most enlightening thing about growing your own food is that when you do buy food in the store, you think in terms of how to not waste it. knowing how much effort it takes to produce food. Oh, yes. Growing your own food, and also, well, just how not to waste anything. Today, actually, that's not correct. Yesterday, I went over next door to the church that's over here to the east of us. Arms Fellowship, I believe is what it's called. And they were having their Bradford pear trees removed. Thank goodness. Finally. The one good thing about Bradford pears, actually, there's two good things about Bradford pears. The first good thing is they put on their blooms very, very early in the year, and the bees do like to go visit them and get the nectar from them. So it does give something for the bees to do early. And the other thing that's good about them is the wood is very dense. It is pear wood, and it burns fairly well. I guess the third thing is you don't have to worry about the tree being around for very long because it's pretty weak. So really only two good things about a Bradford pear. So I was going over there, and I would have been doing more work in the garden, but this is an opportunity for us to get a hold of some firewood for maybe year after next, if we can get it and put it someplace dry to season and cure it. And 1 or 2 entire pear trees is a lot of firewood, and that'll keep us very warm, and maybe other people very warm. So it's a good resource. It's available, and since we're able to just pull it across the street, the tree trimmer that was doing the work didn't have to load up all of that wood and cart it to a place to dispose of it, because you have to pay to throw that stuff away. And we also got some of the little twigs and leaves and other things that were the little bits of debris that were left over. We scraped all of that together, and I threw it into totes. And the portion of the work that we're doing in our corn patch this week is taking the space in between the planting beds and digging those out. And the video that we've got coming out at the end of the week will explain this procedure in a lot more detail. But we take that soil, this good soil, from inside of the walkway, and we turn it up and over onto the garden beds on either side. So we increase our topsoil depth here, and then we take woody material, wood chips, and of course those twigs and leaves, and we put those down there and then cover them up with more wood chips. So this is the thing that you're going to be seeing come Sunday. That wasn't even my material that wasn't letting go to waste. It was the stuff right across the road. But hey, it's like this is organic material. It's free. It's available. And ordinarily, I would have to go take the truck, drive over to the Greenway site, pick it up from there after they've already shredded it. But this stuff was fine enough. I could just throw it down the way it was. So I was happy to do that. So we had a whole bunch of extra work going on. And yeah, this is every little bit that we do, every little bit that I don't waste, every little bit that I can recycle, every little bit that I can use to do something positive with, that I can use it as an energy source or as a tool or something that's going to enhance something else that I'm doing. All of those things are resources. Hopefully there's no trash at all. It's just resources. Trash is a resource that you haven't figured out what it's good for yet. So you throw it away. Hopefully you don't throw anything away. You find a use for everything. Or modify your consumption so that you don't produce things that you have to throw away. Maybe you modify your consumption so you can get things that you can use later. Like a drink bottle that is sturdy enough that you can mix up a drink in it and keep it in the refrigerator and use it over and over and over again. Although, I think I'd rather have glass than plastic. There's so few people making glass bottles for disposable purposes these days. There we go. Yeah. People are symbiotic with nature. The biggest problem, environmentally speaking, that we have right now is so many people do not understand that mankind is a natural being. Mankind has a purpose in nature, an actual real purpose, and it's a vital one. And the idea that you want to get rid of mankind because mankind is bad for the planet is completely and totally misunderstanding what man is. And it's kind of hard, I think, to be able to successfully design for the well-being of man whenever you don't like him. It's just my thought on that. Yeah. Happy Garden says it takes me 15 minutes just to get to town. Yeah. 15-minute forests. There you go. So 15-minute cities. How about 15-minute forests? There you go. And small communities that you have that are based around forest gardening. Not everyone needs to have a sheep or a goat. Not everyone has to have a lawn full of grass. But you can have enough people with sheep and goats to take around to the places where there are lawns with grass, graze the lawns, and exchange for some of that feed that their animals are getting. They may be willing to part with some of the milk or occasionally some of the meat to the other people in the community. So you have the shepherd or the goat herd that's part of the community. And part of the job of the shepherd or the goat herd is providing a lawn service. This is how he feeds the sheep or the goats. Of course, the produce of the sheep and the goats goes back to the community, and the community exchanges their produce with the farmer. This is all very, very tight, close knit, and most of the needs of a community can be met within the same community. This is a resilient system and a natural system, as opposed to the long supply chains that some people are envisioning, where they just pack people in as tightly as possible and then ship the food to them. This just makes me think too much of the cattle in the pens waiting waiting their turn to go to the slaughterhouse. Yeah. So here's the thing about commercial farming against the small family farm. The small family farm has a problem competing with the commercial farm because they can't produce the volume that the commercial farm can produce. The commercial farm can produce volume and have lower prices per unit of whatever it is that they're producing. So as far as being competitive in the marketplace with things like staple crops, corn, beans, soy, that sort of thing, it's almost impossible for a small family farm to do that. Small family farms have to be agile and move to market areas, market niches that the commercial farms either are not filling or are completely and totally incapable of filling. And by being small and agile, having lower overhead, they can actually begin to undercut prices and outcompete the major farms. But you have to be selective about the product that you're producing. I couldn't sell corn, regular corn, sweet corn. I couldn't possibly do it out of my backyard. Don't have enough space to do that. But I can grow a rare heirloom variety of corn and keep that particular heirloom around and sell the seeds to that heirloom corn and actually generate a profit that way. And I think we're going to be doing a video not too long from now, whenever it warms up anyway, about micro homesteading and generating income from micro homesteading. And obviously you're not going to be able to do it with staple crops on a small homestead, especially not in a backyard garden. You're not going to generate the income on staples. Now you might be able to flip salad greens. You may be able to do microgreens. You could do some mushroom farming, things like that major companies may not be into doing. And of course, supply your local market niches and stuff like that. Those are things you can do. And there's a lot of other little interesting side business that you have the opportunity to do once you've got property. If you have some property, any kind of property, space that you can do something in, it could just be a third of an acre, a sixth of an acre. I've seen people generate income from a tenth of an acre. And so there are things that can be done. But yes, staple crops, the big stuff, you can't compete with the commercial farms. But the commercial farms aren't going to be able to compete anymore either. Sometime within the next 40 years, whenever they can't get phosphate fertilizer, that's whenever things get really interesting. Because it all depends upon being able to supply those inputs. Because the soil that the commercial farmers are operating on has been deprived of organic matter. It's been deprived of minerals. It doesn't have anything except what they put into it and pump into it. And it's all external inputs. Once you can't supply those, it falls apart. Let's see. Let's skip over the talks about nursing. Let's see. Well, let me see if I can catch up. Faith was talking talk about my confusion with remediation plants. What do we do to remediate? All right, so I believe this is we're talking earlier about what we would do about maybe the oil and petrochemicals running off of the highway. In the case of using plants to do bioremediation, if there's toxic chemicals in the soil, like levels of lead and cadmium from say a coal mining operation, and you've got high acidity, which means that the lead and cadmium are now soluble. We do things like plant sunflowers. We plant other things. I think there's one other that's really good for cadmium too. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but we plant those plants to pull those chemicals out of the soil. They would accumulate them in the body of the plant, in the tissue of the plant, the leaves and the stalk, etc. Whenever the plant reaches its maturity, we'll go ahead and gather the seed from it, but remove the entire plant, and then take that entire plant and take it to a place where it can compost down separate from the site that needed to be cleaned up. This concentrates those heavy metals in one location, hopefully a location that's not going to allow it to leach out into the environment again from there. If you can concentrate enough of those heavy metals in one location, at some point in the future, it may even become economically viable to extract the minerals from that concentrated source. And you got that by using your bioremediation plants. You could theoretically set up with the intention of deliberately mining minerals from the soil with plants. It would be a very long and slow process, but you would be able to mine minerals out of the soil and concentrate them in locations. That is an interesting problem, right? And we've been trying to deal with things like greed for a long time, right? And other things. People are going to like to hear it, but obeying the 10 Commandments is a great way to start. It really is. It's what Jesus taught people to do. And yeah. Also, good Buddhists are not likely to steal from you either. I mean, there's a lot of different ways we can have peaceful coexistence. Mainly, I think the biggest way to deal with this is to get the human being tending his own garden. Because if what I need to live is here at my fingertips and I'm in control of it, I don't need to take what somebody else has. I have mine. Everything else is just bonus. I think that's the main way we do it. We get mankind back in the garden, tending the garden, and we follow very, very, very simple rules of social conduct. You don't even need, well, I'm not going to say that because actually that kind of is my belief system. But without imposing my belief system upon you, you could say that socially, a social compact that where we agree not to murder, steal, or assault each other as the basic foundation of human law might be a good way to go. In which case, we all understand this law. It all works to our own advantage. And we don't need a gang of criminals with weapons imposing order on us whenever we can supply our own. So, yeah, I would like to see humans living anarchically the same way the forest does. Amazingly, it all works out and it becomes productive and abundant. All right. Let's see. All right, yeah, there we go. I thought that's what you were talking about, Faith. There's a lot of scary stuff on the way. I think it was during between 2018, 2019, 2020, a large portion of what we grew for staples in the United States did not make it. And of course, the contracts to sell are still there. The way the system works is a farmer will need to get money, and they say, I'm going to plant soybeans this year, but I need money. I need money for fuel. I need money to repair my tractor. I need money to get the seed. Even we need money for fertilizer. We need money for everything else, and of course, we need money to be able to buy groceries while we're waiting for everything to come in that we can sell to be able to produce. They have to get loans. In order to cover costs, they have to ensure that their product is sold. So they get contracts ahead of time to sell product. Now, that product, whenever it finally comes harvest time, may wind up leaving the country. So we could have people sitting here in the U.S., if you're here in the U.S., or you can be in Australia if you're in Australia. You can be in England if you're in England. It doesn't matter where you are, because typically farming works the same way. The farmers want to sell for the best price, and they get the contract for the best price usually before the crop is even grown. Once the crop is up, it's going to go to the person that paid for it. And sometimes that means that people at home starve or don't get it. If it's bad enough, then yeah, people at home starve, because governments can print money, but they can't make food. And whenever they print money, oh Lord, they make the poorest among us suffer. Because if I only have a few dollars, and all of a sudden you made my few dollars worth less, then I'm poorer. And it didn't really matter that you said, here's a little plastic card, you can use this to get groceries. Okay, I got groceries, but now all the money I have is worth less. And it's worth a lot less than what I got out of the grocery store. However, if I'm poor and I know that I can step out my front door just about any time of the year and have food right there waiting for me, all I need to do is go harvest it, cook it, and eat it, then it doesn't matter. As long as I can occupy this ground and I can tend this forest, my needs are going to be taken care of. Since my needs are taken care of, I don't have the stress that may lead me to want to try some criminal behavior. I'm not suffering. I'm at peace. I have what I need, and I don't need what you have. As a matter of fact, I have a little bit of surplus. Here, you seem to be hungry. Have some food. I think you're cold. Would you like some firewood? We have extra. Things like this. And the way we get there, of course, is removing the thieves from the equation. And of course, decentralizing the human population. We get ourselves to the point where we are on the land and are supported by it. At that point, we have our independence and we can't be swayed. We can act according to our principles. Well, it's kind of funny. Because when I was reading in the Bible, very early on, I found out that God was actually intending for humans to do some work. It wasn't that God was going to save us. It's like, no, wait. I made you guys and put you here on this planet so you could replenish this planet, so you could restore it, so you could tend the garden and make it a paradise. That's what you're here for. What are you doing? So yeah, I expected God to come bail you out. No, that's not going to happen. We're supposed to be doing God's work, not the other way around. Who's serving who here? Who's the servant? Well, yep. Great. Get them out there. Get them out. Get their toes in the dirt. Get their fingers in the dirt. Play with frogs and toads. Chase grasshoppers and dig up worms. Push little roly-polies around with their finger. Eat the weeds. Yeah. Kill all the TVs. Carrington Vent might not be the worst thing that ever happened to us. We really would want to try to have more resiliency built in all around us before we have it. But yeah, ultimately losing our tech might be the best thing that we could possibly have happen to us. In all seriousness, it very well might be, because our tech may lead us down the road to complete and total annihilation if we don't change our ways soon. Well, the greed condition gets changed whenever the hearts of men change, and the hearts of men change whenever they're allowed to begin seeing and experiencing truth. And the best way to see and experience truth, real truth for yourself, is to get out there in nature and observe and see what's going on in nature. Because once you start seeing everything that works together in nature and how perfectly it comes together, it's hard to deny the existence of a creator. Now, I'm not saying that my idea of what God is the real, true thing, and I'm not saying anybody else has got the right idea either. I'm just a human being. How in the world am I supposed to know? But I very firmly believe that there is definitely a creative force that is behind everything that we see, and it's probably nothing at all like what most of us think. So there you go. And somebody has a different viewpoint or a different belief, who am I to say that he's wrong? Looking at what Hugo is talking about. Swallow study, esophagus stretch, oxygen for. I haven't done an oxygen volume test in a while. Stopping smoking was really good for me, though. 1980, grew up in rural Oklahoma. Tell you what, things were a lot different back then. You could go down the road, pick up those aluminum cans. Take a plastic bag with you. Pick up the aluminum cans and the glass bottles and everything else. Most of the junk on the side of the road, just throw it into that garbage bag. By the time you got to the Quick Trip, you just go through it. Okay, that's a nickel. There's a can. There's a can. There's a can. There's another nickel. Oh, this one's a dime. We turn in the glass, because you could turn in glass and get a small amount of change for it back then. And a small amount of change would get you some candy at the Quick Trip. I get some licorice whips, or at that time, I don't know why I liked them, but I had those little orange circus peanuts. I don't know why I liked them. I can't stand them now, but then I thought, these are really good. I think it may have been because there was a large volume of candy that you got for the same amount of money. And of course, I've always been thrifty. So it was like, I get more. And maybe that's the reason why I liked them. But walking to the Quick Trip and picking up the litter and making the world a better looking place was profitable. It paid for itself. I got my goodies. So I was getting paid to do a good thing for the environment. Whenever you think about it, aluminum cans and glass bottles are still resources. Even if you can't necessarily get a whole lot of money back for them directly, you can find something to do with them. There's Billy. Oh, Billy. I saw what you're having to do with that pickaxe. I'm so sorry. I was thinking, if you got 2 inches of topsoil, this trick I'm going to show you later on this week, it lets you increase it by up to 75%. Oh, no, 75% of a half inch still isn't a whole bunch. Oh, you've got your work cut out for you. But yeah, I just had a wild hair. I was pushing that wheelbarrow full of chips along. That bird was up there in the tree going chirpity chirpity chirpity. And so I looked up and was talking back to him, and I went, well, shoot, if you're going to sing, I'm going to sing too. I just came up with something. Can't wait until it's warm enough to plant outside here in New Hampshire. Well, not too long, I hope. It's got to be spring soon, right? I think tonight is the last cool weather night, or last cold weather night, and it'll be mid 40s and up from here on out. So no more danger of frost, and we're at the 5th. So according to the forecast, I'm going to hold on to my tomato seedlings and not put them out until after the 15th of April, because I've seen it happen. Years have come by where just that frost hits and just wipes everything out. So I'm just going to wait a little bit. Still just cold season vegetables and bulbs right now. Bulbs, tubers, cold season vegetables, lettuces, mizunas, spinach, that sort of thing. Peas, great. But the stuff that's a little bit more frost tender, we're gonna hold off and keep it inside. Although I think tomorrow I've got to go run to the post office and mail some corn seeds. It may be tomorrow. I might have to wait until Monday. It depends. I hope to do it tomorrow because it's a channel member that ordered the seeds, and I'd like to be able to get them to him in time for him to actually get started planting. But there was a little minor holdup at the post office. They didn't have mailers in stock, and I didn't want to buy the large box to send a small amount of seeds. So I said, okay, just put a pin in that. I'll come back tomorrow or the next day, and went to go see what I could get in the way of mailers. I ordered some up. They'll be arriving tomorrow. And as long as the post office does not close before I get them, then I'll have those seeds in the mail tomorrow. But I got a better price on the mailer packages than you can get them for at the post office, which should help immensely with shipping costs. As you know, we do have to pay to ship everything, although we only charge $10 a $10 flat rate for everything, unless of course you order a whole bunch of stuff, and then it's just free anyway. So anything I can do to reduce the cost, I really need to, because otherwise I can wind up just having to shell money out of my pocket to send things to people, and I can't do that forever. Yeah. So they tell you to move out of the city so you don't have a bunch of young people around you freaking without electronics. I don't know what some people are going to do without the little external brain that they carry around with them, right? Maybe one of these days they're going to have a plug in their head, and the external brain will be internalized. Maybe it'll talk to them inside their heads. People just walk around talking to them. So, oh, they already have those things. They stick them in their ears, right? People just wander around talking to each other, and they're not on drugs. But yeah, give them a brief power outage and watch them freak out. I can't have my internet. I can't go on Instagram. Oh no, I can't connect to whatever it is. Yeah, they'll just lose it. You know, I who was it? It was PragerU, I think. You guys are familiar with Prager University. They did a poll, or the poll about, it was an opinion poll about this tendency in the modern world to avoid having children or put off having children, and how really a lot. This is a serious problem all over the world. We're experiencing major population declines. To the point where we're below replacement level in the West, and even in some of the third world countries, the population is declining. The birth rate is declining. We may not even get to 9 billion people at the current rate unless we do something to change it. And once again, I said this is bad, because we need to have a younger generation to take care of the older generation whenever they can't take care of themselves. And I was getting spammed by one particular person that was using multiple accounts, thinking I didn't notice, but all saying the same thing. Oh, you're wrong. No, you're selfish. You think making that child take care of you whenever you're old, that's selfish. You brought that child into the world. You didn't ask them whether they wanted to be brought into the world. This sort of thing, right? Obviously, they have no idea what family values are. I explained it simply. Not having children means someone is going to have to produce children that will take care of you. And in a situation where it's not certain whether there's going to be money to pay for that, that's a rather mean thing to do to a future generation, to put upon them the burden of taking care of you whenever you're elderly and you haven't done anything to secure your own future. Because the fact of the matter is, we get old, and as we get old, things don't work as well as they used to. Eventually, you may get to the point where it's really a struggle to stand up. Although, yeah, you're still awake, you're still capable, you're still mentally alert, but you just can't do the things that you used to be able to do. You can't work as hard as you used to be able to work. And being able to actually earn a living may become challenging. So having family that can take care of you, or at least help and make sure that you don't do something silly like fall down and not be able to get up and wind up starving to death on your kitchen floor, is very vital. It's something that you're going to need, something you're going to want. And if you don't have those children, they're not going to be there for you. Also, if you have those children and you neglect them and you put them in a corner with a TV and you don't spend the time teaching them the values that they need to have to be a good functioning member of society, then you don't get the help that you need either. All of that is reversible. And yeah, it's rough whenever you get old. I'm seeing my mother right now going through Parkinson's, and given that particular family tendency, I don't know, maybe 30, 35 years from now, or maybe even sooner, I may start to have a little bit of I may start doing videos like this for some reason. You'll know why. Mason jar glasses, then it's a canning jar, and then with a chip, it's a pencil holder. There you go. About half of the glasses that we've got in the cabinet are old jelly jars, even though they don't make many of these glass jelly jars anymore. But it's a jelly jar. It lasts forever as long as you don't break it. It's a glass. You can start sweet potato slips in them. Anything you want to with them. All right. Yeah. Carrington type events, getting the country to keep on functioning. Well, at least getting the people to be taken care of. Whether or not there's a federal government that runs things or not, I don't care. Really, I don't care. If it disappeared tomorrow, I don't care. I might do a little dance, actually, if it disappeared tomorrow. It just wasn't there. Because what did they do for me other than threaten my life and take my money? I'm tired of it. I don't like it. I don't think anybody does. Now, Billy, I'm going to disagree with you. If mankind faded from the planet, Mother Nature would have to come up with something else to do the job that mankind is supposed to do. Now, since mankind's not really doing that job, maybe Mother Nature's in the process of coming up with a replacement. But hopefully that becomes unnecessary. But it's going to be something that can survive in the current climate and environment that we have, with a depleted atmosphere that hasn't been replaced because we haven't been replacing it. Oh yeah, they'll probably taste fine. Insufficient space for privacy, insufficient space to just survive, just to live. I think it's about anywhere from 8 to 12 people per acre that you can support with horticulture just about anywhere on Earth. Some places are more productive than others. The tropics particularly, you can support a lot more with horticulture in a smaller amount of space. Whereas our modern agriculture, with all the inputs and machinery and things, gets an average of about 2 to 3 people per acre. And even then, all the food has to now be taken and moved from where it was produced to somewhere else to be processed, somewhere else to be sold, and then finally to the end consumer over here. So that food has to make a long journey. That's fuel, that's expense. Lots of waste, pollution. nasty stuff. And we don't need it. We don't need it. I think we should probably save the petroleum that we've got for the very, very useful things that petroleum is useful for. There are some chemicals and products that we can make out of petroleum that are really, really nice to have. Maybe we don't need to spend it as fuel. Or at least we don't need to spend as much as fuel. Because if we already have everything around us, then we only need to use a little bit of fuel to get around for the vital things that you cannot produce locally. And that's the thing, is producing locally. Production is local. I'm going to talk more about that, but I think this is a topic for an entirely different evening. Let's see. Billy dropped his towel. So Vicky says, for small scale, it's possible to grow. Hang on a second. It's possible to grow. Boom. Saffron. Crocuses. Crocemias. You're going to plant these guys in the fall. They're a fall bulb. Oddly enough, the garden centers sell them in the spring. They sell the bulbs in the spring. Of course, if you buy them from the home and garden center, from the box store in the spring, chances are you're not going to have anything to show for it. You've just wasted your money. So look for somebody that sells them and only ships them in the fall. Same as the daffodils. Once again, fall planting. Narcissus, fall planting. Daffodils, that is a daffodil. Hyacinth, fall planting. There's a bunch of things that you should plant in the fall. Garlic, plant in the fall. Yeah. They threaten us and they take our money and they make everything more difficult. And meanwhile, the protection of law that we look for is, we have common law. We already have common law. We don't need a group of people over here coming up with bogus laws that we're supposed to follow, and they're going to threaten us with violence if we don't. Whatever, one of the very first things in the common law was not to do that in the first place. So we need a restoration of law in this country and around the world. We need law, real law. All right, I'm going to get off my pedestal or off my soapbox here. There we go. Yeah. I think more and more people are looking for the small farm to get their food, and it's getting easier for the micro farm and small farm to make money these days. This is true. I mean, just the idea that they can get their herbs locally sourced has at least one restaurant that will come by, and whenever I have it anyway, things like rosemary and oregano or basil or whatever spices I've got, I can sell those to the local restaurant, and then they can mark up on their chalkboard that their herbs are locally sourced or their produce is locally sourced. And customers want that. They see the value in that. They go, oh yes, we're going to reinvest our money in our own community instead of investing our money in somebody else's community over there. If it's something that can only be produced over there because it's a specialty item, then yeah, you're going to buy it from over there because you want to get the good stuff from the people that make the good stuff. And meanwhile, we've got our own specialties that we make. We have the thing that we do that's really good. And that way we still have that trade going back and forth. But as far as the daily needs of life, that really should be immediate and accessible, and really accessible to everyone. And since nature really does this great thing where it produces more of everything whenever you tend it, it's not hard to get there, but it does require a change in the attitude. And people have to get out there and start doing it, start planning, start putting together permanent systems. Plant those nut trees and fruit trees, and then plant everything else that goes with them. Sunflowers and corn, and no burning. No burning. Well, yeah, don't burn them because if you're okay, so if you're using sunflowers for bioremediation, you wouldn't want to burn the stalks. You'd want them to compost down. If you burn them, then the ash would carry some of that material with it and carry it to other locations. So you wanted to compost down in place and just keep it stuck there. But no, the corn stalks, I don't burn the corn stalks either. At the end of the season, we take the corn stalks and we put them down into the pathways, and they'll compost and become new soil later on. Many weeds are miners, getting minerals out of the soil. Of course, that's what mining is getting minerals, acquiring the minerals. Yeah. Eucalyptus pulls up gold. There you go. Yep. It's kind of cool, right? Like, hey, I've got a tree here that will mine for gold for me. Check this out. One of these days I may try to grow eucalyptus again. I tried one once and it did not like it. It thought it was supposed to be in winter, and we went into summer and it said, "Arr!" Yep. Ours too. For example, tree trimmer across the street. I got free firewood from him. I gave him some duck eggs, talked to him about, seeing if he wanted to buy a few ducks, because I do want to. Oh, incidentally, just in case this doesn't get through, if you're in northeastern Oklahoma or nearby and would like some khaki Campbell ducks, they're really good layers. I have a few more than I actually need. We do have a dozen, and really, I only really need 6. So if anybody out there would like some ducks, go to our website, check us out, give me a call. Just not now because it's late and I want to go to bed. But give me a call sometime during normal business hours, and we'll see about getting you hooked up with some ducks. Or I might wind up hooking the tree trimmer up with him, and he can come around and help me out with some of our trees. Sort of an exchange of services and goods, which is exactly the way communities should be operating, with neighbors helping out neighbors and doing favors for each other and all that good stuff. All right. Lawn darts. All right. There we go. Ever since Adam and Eve were driven out of the garden, my mom's side of the family has tried to stay in the gardens. There you go. Well, yeah, I opened up that book and I read in there, and it gets to that point where it explains why man was made, and it says right there to replenish the earth. And he made the man and put him in the garden to tend it and dress it. It's like, oh, okay. So the purpose of man is to tend the garden, and in doing so, man is supposed to replenish the earth. Of course, you might ask yourself, what in the world does the earth need to be replenished from, right? And that's whenever I did a study regarding the Earth's atmosphere, particularly the atmospheric pressure. See, there's an atmospheric pressure that humans experience the highest degree of health at. And I can't recall what exactly it is in millibars right off the top of my head. I've got it in a previous live stream. That amount of atmospheric pressure, in order to produce that atmospheric pressure for humans to be able to live comfortably on planet Earth and actually have longer and healthier lives, would require that we replace 133 trillion tons of atmosphere that we have lost since humans became adapted to living on Earth. Now, whether you believe that God created man and put him on the planet, or whether you believe mankind evolved somehow, or if you're maybe a little Paul Stamets and you believe that perhaps after a major extinction event, DNA encoded into mycelia fungi invaded and infected some of the species that were still survived to alter their genetic structure and cause them to produce this new being with some variations because it didn't carry the entire genome encoded, and things sort of adapt to the situation. Hey, maybe So maybe that's how God does it. I don't know. All I know is if we are to survive on this planet, we do have to tend our own gardens. It's the best way that we have peace and prosperity between us as human beings. And it's also the best way to replenish the atmosphere, because whenever we plant full forest gardens with all of that photosynthesis working on the atmosphere, then we can do fun things like take carbonate rock and heat it and release the CO2 out of it. See, that's oxygen that's trapped in that rock. People go, carbon's bad. That's oxygen trapped in that rock. We need oxygen to breathe. Let's release the oxygen from the rock, plant our forests, convert that CO2 into the oxygen that we need to breathe, and maybe, just maybe, we can be healthier. Maybe we can live longer. Maybe our brains will improve and we'll think more clearly. All kinds of wonderful benefits are going to come whenever we actually start replenishing the planet instead of trying to avoid being a part of the ecosystem. Because we're not doing a really good job of being not a part of the ecosystem. We're a part of it whether we think of ourselves as being a part of it or not. We can be a positive part, or we can eventually lead to our own extinction. Respect one another. Novel concept, really. Yeah, of course, this goes back to childhood education and learning from your elders how to behave in society. And it's something that the previous generation neglected to do. I had parents that thought that the punishment was the way that you taught children. It's like, no, well, punishment will teach children. It'll teach children to be secretive. It'll teach them to be resentful. It will teach them to despise you. It may alter their behavior to make them at least outwardly act the way you want to, but it doesn't change their hearts. The only way you can do that is to sit them down and talk to them and get them to think about what it is that they're doing and the consequences of what it is that they're doing. Children are intelligent. If you talk to them, they will understand. That doesn't mean that you should take punishment off the table entirely. If I've got the ability to use this switch over here, but I would rather educate instead, yeah, the child's going to want the education first and not the switch. I can guarantee it. And they do listen. Yes, exactly. Yeah, whenever you have your own time and time and effort and sweat and blood and tears invested in whatever it is that you're doing, then yeah, you're going to appreciate what you do, and you're also going to have an appreciation for the time and effort that other people spend. But if you don't have any time or effort invested into anything, then you don't understand the value. And if you don't understand the value, then yeah, it becomes a lot easier to go, well, they don't need that thing over there. I'm just going to take it for myself because I think I need it. Because you don't understand that value. Yeah, no more trained limbs. No more. All righty. Yep. No green skin potatoes. This bad. Solanine is the chemical that's made in the skins of potatoes when they turn green. It's toxic. It's not good for you. All righty, guys. Yeah, I've been going for a while here. Faith's heading off to bed. I'm sure there's plenty of comments. Let me just zip down real quick. Oh, yeah, there's tons of them down here, guys. Woo! I am not able to keep up with comments anymore, guys. This is wonderful. Thank you all so much for coming out and joining us tonight. I'm going to go ahead and shut things down, head off to bed too, because it is late out here, 10 o'clock, past my bedtime, and I've got some more gardening to do early in the morning. Of course, I know Billy's going to probably sleep in tomorrow. That looked like a lot of work, buddy. A lot of work. And you get a lot of work to do there. But hey, it's yours, and you can create and you can grow it and make something beautiful out of it, which is in a way I kind of envy you. Because once you've got something produced out of that and you can show people what you started with, you're going to have some serious bragging rights. Really are. Anyway, guys, it's been wonderful having you, and I want to wish you a good evening. Y'all get out there, get growing, and I'll catch you next time.